I'm on a Cuba roll, so I'm just going to roll with it. And, I don't know. After working at Sullivan and Cromwell, I'm not going to give away any secrets, you guys. Don't worry. I love you all there. You are wonderful employers. But I also realize by working on Mad Ave too and just being around all of that it's all PR, right? It's all about PR. It's all Wag the Dog. I haven't seen that film. And when you look at Castro and Baba Wawa, it could be Captain Kangaroo and John Lennon, whatever. It's PR. And I just, it's, if this guy was the real thing, he would not be like doing a photo op with, ABC News. He's supposedly like against all that, right? And yet here he is, like, I'm going to be like the guy in the beard and she's going to have like the Gloria Steinem glasses and like, we're going to do this number, In fact, maybe I think I'll try to look it up here. There's, it's part of this shtick, but I don't know. I mean, shall I roll with it tonight? We've got the whole Venona papers. Joseph McCarthy, who everyone thought was a nut. I remember my father told me, like, Joseph McCarthy, that guy's really a nut. And then a very good friend in New York who was, part of like Columbia University and stuff, and said, Kennedy, Robert Kennedy worked for our friend, our Wisconsin Senator Joe McCarthy. And that was like, what? Kennedy worked for Joe McCarthy? Huh? And it's like, well, the parents were Irish, they were friends. And there's been so much paranoia, right, with Joe McCarthy, and he was so ridiculed. But now they're finding that, the ridiculers, and maybe he was going after the wrong people. He was going after maybe Hollywood fluff at that time, although Hollywood was insidious. And I do want to get into more of the Rockefeller Center programming. I'm sure that's where Baba Wawa likes. And we've got kind of this big ball of stuff, as it were. And, so Castro had lived in the U.S. for a while, right? Had he been like a waiter at the Parker Hotel or something funny, right? There were jokes about him playing baseball, but I'm sure he must have rubbed elbows with the Dulles brothers, with the Rockefellers. Right now coming to mind is a story of someone, and I wish it was coming from him. I had interviewed him, and I hope to again. Everything was on tape before. I do believe he's written a book as well, but I just need to get it up if possible, because it was wonderful. But I will recount it quickly here, a little bit of it. He had gone to Cuba, sort of, after the fact. This was really right around before the Kennedy assassination, and he had been unwittingly involved. It was sort of one of those horrible events where everything was on a need-to-know basis. Yes, and this is where your programming comes from, your programming. And, he ended up in being carted by the, Mormons down to Houston to like the Egyptian lounge at, the Copacabana. It was just, one of these kinds of stories, and wound up with, a Jewish guy named Abe in, the finest hotel, outside of Havana, that was, once a casino and now his office. And, he was, made to forge things for Abe, that Abe was doing passport work down there, and they were bringing people in. And this person I interviewed, his expertise was he was a forger and had been utilized by different entities, kind of passed here and there. So looking at this, I'm sort of thinking about, our other video about the stockyards I did a few days ago, and that this is really just across town, not lengthwise, just a little hop across, and where all the programs come from, all of your soap operas, and once again, we're going back to Theodore Adorno and the, I believe that one of the formulas for the soap opera was that no more than 10% of a show could ever be new, that there was something about repetition. And it's interesting because Psychic Driving with Dr. Cameron was repetition, and in advertising, right, there's repetition, and this sort of torment of repetition, and that was part of it. But it's interesting that what maybe people consider entertainment or an information hub, etc., was always called programming, and that's just interesting, TV programs, and that they literally, I don't, mean to get too deep tonight, but they really literally were basically programming people, I feel. And so it's hard to trust this when you look at this picture. What are they telling you? It's all about deception on some level. Sorry I don't have the CBS News one. That's the one with the eye. That's always the fun one, isn't it? With that eye. And in the other video I did tonight, I had mentioned, communism. There was a fight sort of against communism, and I see that fight less and less. And you know what? I have a friend who just recently passed away, but what was weird was that I had not realized that his parents were heavily a part of the New School for Social Research. And it's just wild because that's something that I had been really looking into. He was a publisher, and I may have mentioned him before, Adam Parfrey. This is a fabulous book. He had given me a copy. It's hard copy, and it's got like every fact you could imagine. It's this giant, and there's a really, beautiful obituary about him in the New York Times. If you look up Adam Parfrey, and his father was this, he had a kitty who looked like Fanny, and I didn't even know that. And he got that kitty very soon before he died. He had just lost a dog. But we're going to go down through here because he does show New School for Social Research people. There's Adam when he was younger on the right, and he's with someone there that people know, Sam Yorty. I don't know who a lot of these people are. He gets really obscure. And his father, let me see, was Maximus in Planet of the Apes, which I never saw, but, his father was in a lot of, there is his father, Parfrey, winning an award somewhere. There's Adam kind of in his younger days, and he had a press called Feral House Press and Amok Press. But it's wild that his father was part of that whole New School for Social Research. And if you watched, like, I I don't remember her name. The woman who was in like the Golden Girls and on Archie Bunker, Maud. She was from there. He showed her in something on here. He started to show new school social research, literature from the 50s and things like that. Not everyone in here is, but I'd like to try to find it for you because it's quite fascinating. And Maud was the first person to be on a show where the person had an abortion performed, as part of the show. Not that you saw it, but that was, he was really into, you'll see, kind of Parisian pop music and other things as well. And, I don't know why he was so against, Donald Trump at the end, but he'd had a series of strokes and he was a little bit cross. But, is that him on The Guardian? Interesting. Is that him being Chairman Mao? And it's interesting. I had tried to look up some things tonight and they didn't just sort of come up Googling. So it will take more digging about, Mao being compromised at Oxford, and that's why China fell to communism, that they somehow fell under something at Oxford. And so I don't see anything. Maybe I'll stop. That might be some old something from, Stanley Kubrick. Okay. But Maud from that show, and just lots of people who were basically what one would consider cultural Marxists, and that's kind of getting back once again to McCarthy, right? To McCarthy, Joseph McCarthy, and in reading the Venona Papers, one sees that Wisconsin was a real, I guess one would say, some sort of hotbed, and that everyone was coming over from the Frankfurt School, which was Marxist, and I think came over under the wings of maybe some department at Columbia. But the new school did become independent, and it was just this white kind of soulless, almost maybe even windowless kind of building. And I didn't know what it was. In fact, I had a roommate who went there. It was sort of known as a place where you could get a quick and dirty PhD. And so, it wasn't a full out joke there, but people did sort of laugh about it. And that's what my roommate had done. Is that his, I think that's Adam when he was younger. He was in a lot of things. And, but it's weird because, it was a PhD factory back in the 40s. And when the GIs came on the GI Bill, they all got to go to college, free or discount or something of that nature. And then their teachers were all of these people from the New School of Social Research. So, it was like, oh my God, and that was really how Marxism became insidious, because, you've got these GIs and, they're going to learn from these professors. And, KGB agents, if you listen to them on YouTube, will say, it takes three generations. So, in the 50s, people had these professors, and McCarthy was unfortunately maybe focusing on popular celebrities when maybe the real heat, although, with the Venona Papers, the infiltration was just intense. People had thought that communists were, in the beginning, the first people that were found, like by the FBI, if you look at like who was the first communist ever found, they were, like eccentrics. There was like some woman who lived alone with like a bunch of rats in a swamp, like in Louisiana. And then it turned out with looking at the Venona papers that wasn't true, that all of a sudden there were just literally like, and they went all the way up to the top. They flooded the State Department in Washington, D.C. and academia. And it just sort of went further and further and further and further without anyone having any idea, but everything becoming more and more, liberal or whatever. It was just so weirdly telling when I saw the thing about Maud and abortion, that they were pushing certain ideas, that you had to be like unhappy and on Valium in the 70s, right? You had to get divorced, in order to like be a person. There were just these different formulas, and all of that was coming out of this one place, what people were perceiving as organic ideas, right? Men saying, oh my God, women are feminists, they hate us now, and women saying, I don't know, doing whatever, that it was really, it had come through the microphone of, Tavistock, Theodore Adorno. There was a war going on, and no one really realized that there was a war, and no one was prepared. It was like being a baby on LSD. Everyone was just, there, and it's just wild. So I don't know. It's been quite a night, and sorry that I'm not finding that, but we will get to it at some other point. But it is very interesting to see, what is behind what they are telling us, I like how they're color coordinated too. Oh, the orange and the green, it looks so good. The sunglasses and the beard, We'll be selling a lot of scarves and hats next fall. Maybe it's all just a marketing ploy. Sorry, it's getting late, but had to just kind of maybe go through a couple of things, just kind of the weird little personal feelings and maybe stories over the years about being part of the Cuba thing on the very, very fringes of just sending off those buses that may or may not have become prisons on the other end of the scene. Good night.